Imagine a weapon that sailed thousands of miles, powered only by wind, carrying destruction across an entire ocean. You might think this is science fiction, but I'm here to tell you this was real. This was 1944. This was World War II. This is the story of Japan's Fugo, the balloon bomb. One of the most ingenious and, honestly, forgotten chapters of intercontinental warfare. Welcome back to The Lost Tactician. Today, we're exploring how a desperate nation facing inevitable defeat achieved something unprecedented. They weaponized the wind itself and sent destruction drifting across the Pacific. Between November 1944 and April 1945, something strange began falling from American skies. In Oregon, California, and British Columbia, peculiar wreckage descended silently. Farmers found odd debris in their fields. Forest rangers reported strange objects scattered across wildland areas. But the American public knew almost nothing. The government imposed a complete media blackout. No reports, no information. The goal was strategic: prevent panic and deny Japan any intelligence about whether their weapons system was actually working. This secrecy would bury the story for decades. But on the ground, ordinary Americans were encountering something extraordinary. By late 1944, Japan's position in the war had become untenable. American campaigns brought the conflict closer to the homeland. Firebombing raids intensified. The Navy lay shattered. The military leadership knew defeat was inevitable. It was in this crucible of desperation that brilliant minds turned toward the unconventional. What if Japan couldn't win through traditional military might? What if they could weaponize the jet stream, those rivers of fast-moving air at extreme altitude, to carry destruction across the Pacific to North America? The Fugo project was born. The engineering required was extraordinary. Each balloon was constructed from 36 panels of washi, a handmade paper derived from the kozo bush, meticulously glued together using paste made from the konnyaku plant. The finished balloon measured 33 feet in diameter, light enough to float yet strong enough to withstand temperatures 60 degrees below zero. The real brilliance lay in the altitude control system. Japanese engineers designed an ingenious mechanism using aneroid barometers to automatically regulate the balloon's altitude. As it climbed, sand ballast would be automatically released. As it descended, ballast release would stop. This mechanical genius allowed each balloon to maintain an optimal altitude of 30 to 35,000 feet, right in the heart of the jet stream, where winds traveled at over 100 miles per hour. Beneath each balloon hung a carefully designed payload: 4 incendiary bombs to ignite forest fires, and one 33-pound anti-personnel bomb meant to burst into shrapnel. A self-destruct mechanism was included to destroy evidence. Thousands of Japanese schoolgirls were mobilized to hand-assemble the balloons in secret facilities, their labor part of a last desperate bid to change the war's course. Between November 1944 and April 1945, Japan launched approximately 9,300 balloons into the Pacific. Picture, if you will, a balloon, barely visible against the night sky, ascending from a Japanese beach into, well, the freezing upper atmosphere. It rises through layers of cloud until, honestly, the air becomes too thin to see much of anything clearly. At 30,000 feet, the balloon enters the jet stream, that invisible river of wind, flowing west to east across the vast Pacific. For 3 to 4 days, this balloon travels in silence, powered only by nature itself, guided purely by the laws of physics. It crosses 2,400 miles of open water with no human intervention at all, no course correction possible. This was, quite simply, blind faith in engineering and atmospheric understanding. Not all made it, of course. Weather systems disrupted many balloons. Technical failures claimed others. The harsh conditions at altitude, freezing temperatures, wind shear, ice accumulation, they all took their toll. Japanese estimates suggested that only 300 to 1,000 of the 9,300 balloons actually reached North America, but some did make it. The balloons descended into North America's atmosphere, drifting south and east, with a few reaching as far as Michigan and the Great Plains. They fell during the winter months when, well, the landscape was cold and wet, conditions that would prove crucial in determining this weapon's ultimate fate. The damage inflicted by these balloon bombs was limited, but, it was real. Most fell in remote areas during wet, cold weather, when fires simply couldn't spread easily. But there was one critical incident. At the Hanford Engineer Works in Washington State, which was part of the secret Manhattan Project facility, a balloon bomb's detonation caused a momentary power outage in the transmission lines. For a brief moment, scientists working on the atomic bomb actually feared a Japanese strike at the very heart of their operation. More tragically, the sole loss of life from enemy action on the American mainland during the Second World War came not from military targets, but from innocents. On May 5, 1945, a Sunday school teacher named Elsie Mitchell and 5 children discovered an unexploded balloon bomb near Bly, Oregon. Curiosity led them to investigate. The explosion killed all 6. They became America's only civilian casualties from direct enemy action in the continental United States during the entire war. This tragedy really underscores the indiscriminate nature of this weapon. It wasn't targeting military installations, it was just drifting with the wind, falling wherever physics dictated. It was, in essence, random terror. The American response was shaped by strategic calculation. The government banned all media reporting. Newspapers were forbidden from discussing strange objects falling from the sky. Radio stations received orders to silence any mention. Scientific publications were restricted. The goal was clear: deny Japan any intelligence about whether their weapons were actually working. Japan, frustrated by the lack of any reports confirming their balloon's success, eventually concluded the project was a failure. Without media accounts or evidence of damage, the Japanese military ended the program in April 1945, just as the weapons had actually begun to achieve success. The secrecy was so complete that the Fugo program remained largely unknown to the American public for years. Veterans who saw the balloons never spoke of it. Scientists who studied wreckage rarely discussed it publicly. It became a forgotten footnote, remaining buried until decades later when declassified documents finally revealed the truth. The balloon bombs ultimately failed to achieve their strategic objectives. They didn't spark massive forest fires across the Pacific Northwest. They didn't significantly disrupt American production. They didn't shake American morale as Japanese planners had hoped. Yet their legacy is profound. These balloons represent human ingenuity under pressure, about the lengths nations will go when facing defeat, about strange intersections between scientific innovation and warfare. They demonstrated that, with sufficient motivation and engineering skill, you could weaponize nature itself and reach an enemy thousands of miles away using only the wind. The balloons inadvertently confirmed the existence and trajectory of the jet stream. Atmospheric knowledge that would shape meteorology and aviation for generations. In essence, Japan's desperate weapon system advanced atmospheric science. In our modern world of satellite surveillance and precision-guided weapons, the balloon bomb story feels quaint, yet it carries crucial lessons. It reminds us that unconventional thinking persists in warfare. It shows that humble materials can become dangerous when intelligence and desperation combine. It demonstrates the power of information control in warfare. Decades later, unexploded balloon bombs were still discovered in remote areas across the American West and Canada. Ghostly reminders of this strange chapter still lying dormant in the soil. The story of Japan's balloon bombs is ultimately about survival. how nations push their capabilities to extraordinary limits in an attempt to survive strategic defeat. How innovation flowers in the soil of desperation. These balloons didn't save Japan or change the war's outcome, but they represent something timeless about human resilience and adaptability. History is full of forgotten chapters, stories of ingenuity and audacity that shaped our world in ways we're only beginning to understand. The balloon bombs drifted through history largely unknown, but their story deserves to be remembered. If you found this as compelling as we did, like this video, share it with others who love hidden history, and subscribe to The Lost Tactician. We are dedicated to uncovering these forgotten chapters, to reminding people that history's most important lessons often come from its most obscure moments. Every subscription helps us bring more stories of survival, strategy, and human resilience from the shadows of history into the light. Thank you for joining us on The Lost Tactician.